Hey, hey, hey. It's a Thursday edition of The Bullpen with Adam the Bull. It is September the 29th, 2022. 222. Yeah. I don't know why I'm going so crazy. Anyway, a lot to get to today. We'll talk some Browns-Falcons. Falcons dealing with some injuries, too, same as the Browns. Well, not really the same. Browns have a lot of injuries. Falcons don't have as many key injuries. And also a little bit on the Guardians today. I'm going to give you some. I haven't done this in a while. Some TV and movie stuff that I haven't talked about in a bit. And we begin with an interesting topic we discussed earlier this week on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show that I wanted to dive back into about the state of the three teams in the city of Cleveland, Ohio. We'll get into all of that coming up on this Thursday's Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Podcast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. So, a lot to get to here on this Thursday show. And I want to begin with part of a topic we talked about earlier this week on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. By the way, if you're only watching my podcast, I appreciate that. But if you're not watching the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, where you been? Today, we will be doing our 100th episode of the show. I'm having a ball doing this. We were just cracking up on yesterday's show. If you missed Wednesday's show, you can always watch it on YouTube. By the way, please subscribe to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show YouTube channel. We have 15,000 subscribers in the less than 5 months we've been on the air, and we are the talk of the town. Everybody's loving the show. Be a part of it. Please be a part of it. Subscribe, hit the bell so you get alerts whenever my podcast comes out, whenever the show comes out, extra videos from the show, special events, including our Browns post-game shows, occasional Ohio State post-game shows. I'll be doing Guardians playoff shows. After the first round, I'm going to be away for the first weekend of the playoffs. I'll have to watch the game from out of town, But if the Guardians move on, which I think they will and hope they will, we will have post-game shows. And any breaking news, you will get the alert as long as you are a subscriber to the show, the podcast part of it, and as long as you hit the bell as well. By the way, you can always follow me, of course. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, do, at Adam the Bull on Twitter. Check out my website, adamthebull.com. Find out how you can hire me for special events, speaking engagements, and also check out my Cameo. For things, I do fantasy draft orders, pep talks, roasts, whatever you want me to do. I'm down with it. Okay. So I want to get to this because we were talking on the show, on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show this week, about the three teams in Cleveland. It's really remarkable if you think about it. Never within a year have the Cavs, Browns, and Guardians gone to the playoffs in the same year. It hasn't happened. It's not going to happen in 2022 because, of course, the Browns did not make the playoffs this year. They cross over, but just within a year or so, right? It's never happened. In fact, the three teams have only been over 500 in the same season 3 times. 3. That's it in the history of Cleveland sports. We're talking, over 50 seasons. So obviously that's a lot, and it's a lot of losing. But I would say that this has got to be the best time to be a Cleveland sports fan. Now, ultimately, the Cavs won a champ. 2016 was an amazing year. The Indians at the time were within one win of a World Series. The Cavs won a championship. It was the first championship in the city in forever. I get it. And maybe nothing will ever top that particular year unless the Browns win a championship or the Guardians. But there's never been a better time to be a Cleveland sports fan because all three teams are at the moment, appear to be on an excellent, not pretty good, not hopefully. All three teams appear to be on an excellent path to success. The Cavaliers are coming off their best non-LeBron season in decades and appear poised to be a perennial contender, if nothing else. The Guardians are once again in the playoffs. They've gone to the playoffs every other year on average since the mid-'90s in those great runs. And they are just beginning, like the Cavs, it's young players, right? The Cavs loaded with young players. Same thing with the Guardians. And the Guardians have more good young players still in the pipeline, one of the best farm systems in all of baseball. Browns also, like the Cavs, like the Guardians, one of the best young teams in football. Now, the youth is not to the same degree as the Guardians, who became the youngest. It's not official until the year is over with the playoffs, but as of now, the Guardians are the second youngest team ever to make the playoffs, only behind the 1970 Cincinnati Reds, and they're the only American League team in the history of baseball to win their division as the youngest team in baseball. The Browns not quite as young as those teams, but still overall a very young roster. I shouldn't say not as young because baseball players generally are older when they start, but comparatively to their league. And yet there's a bright future there ahead because they also have what you need most importantly in the NFL, a franchise quarterback. So even though we haven't seen him play yet. So a couple things. Sorry, got distracted by the little text chain that's going on. So we asked a question the other day, which team has the best chance of winning a championship? Now, in the moment, of course it's the Guardians because they're starting the playoffs in 9 days, 8 days, right? Friday, 8 days. They're starting the playoffs in 8 days, and the Browns playoffs, if they make it, won't be till January, and the Cavs wouldn't be till April. So in that vein. But if they were all starting the season right now, who would have the best chance of winning a title? And for the first time since I've been in Cleveland, and maybe the first time ever, we could have a legitimate conversation where all three teams could, like you could make a case that all three teams could win a championship in the next 5 years. And that's, again, certainly never happened in the time I've been here, and it's rarely, if ever, happened for most of you that you've been in a frame of time where you thought all the teams could win a championship. And I do think it's possible. Obviously, winning a championship is hard. Nobody knows that better than Cleveland fans. But both teams, I think all three teams, you can make a case could be championship contenders. At the moment, here's the concerns with all three, right? Like, I would pick the Guardians as the best chance. They have an excellent young roster. They're in a bad division. They have the best GM in town. They have the best manager in town. It's just the best organization of the three in Cleveland, and they got a ton of young talent. But the thing going against them is the owner refuses to spend significant money. He did 15, 16, 17 into 18, and then it started to go downhill, and right now it's really bad. If they can get up to a representative level, then you like their chances even more. For the Cavs, the owner was a big-time meddler. That's not the case anymore. He's staying out of the way more, which is good. He has been always willing to spend, to his credit. He has been. Kobe Altman, who I thought was lost in the soup at that job when he first took over, did some very questionable things in the beginning, has turned it around, went from a 0 to 100 in a couple of years. He's done a magnificent job building this young team. Certainly the concern with the Cavs right now is, the typical concern for any team in not a big city, glamorous city in the NBA is that will players want to stay there? That's always a concern, but nothing you can do about that. The other concern is, at the moment, I talked about this briefly on yesterday's podcast, the Cavs don't have a top 10 player, and it's really been forever since a team has won a championship without a top 10 player. Now, they have 3 top 30 players, top 40, or they have 4 top 50 players. And Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are top 30 players. But the key is Evan Mobley. We talked about this yesterday. If Evan Mobley's offensive game comes all the way, Like, if he reaches the peak of what he's capable of in his offensive game, he could become a top 10 or top 15 player. He's already elite defensively, and if that happens, and if he becomes the best player on the Cavs, and then Mitchell and Garland are 2-3, then the Cavs could definitely win a championship. For the Browns, obviously, there's some question marks with Watson because of the off-the-field stuff. And he hasn't played in 2 years, so that may take him some time till he gets back to being an elite quarterback. Chemistry issues could take some time there. Ownership's been bad here in Cleveland. Jimmy Haslam has been a buffoon of an owner. He's an embarrassment. Has always been. I think they've put some talent together in spite of him. He's done a lot more bad than good, but he is willing to spend. I'll give him that. He has no patience. He's a way over meddler. That's a major problem, and that has me concerned. The AFC right now is so tough and so loaded with great quarterbacks that it's hard. It's going to be a challenge every year. As good as Deshaun Watson is, or at least was, and I think will be again, it's tough. There's a lot of great quarterbacks that you got to battle through, and they're all young, or most of them are young, and so every year it's going to be a challenge. It's not going to be easy for any of these guys. We saw Joe Burrow go to the Super Bowl again. If he never goes back, you can't be shocked by that. Same with Mahomes or Watson or any of these guys. Allen's never gone, as great as he is. He's young and he hasn't been in the league long, but in 3 years he hasn't gone. There's no guarantee. As good as he is, as good as they are, there's no guarantee he's going to go this year because the gauntlet of teams and great young quarterbacks in this conference is tough. So there's things, obviously, winning a championship, being the last team standing out of 30 or 32 is tough. But there's a whole lot of good in the, good things and bad things for all three of these teams. And that's why I say it is the best time, one of the best times ever, if not the best time ever, to be a fan of these teams. There's a lot of optimism. There's a lot of positivity in the city. I think we all feel good about all three teams. Yeah, if the Guardians go out and, lose to the Mariners or the Rays in the first round of the playoffs, there's going to be a lot of negativity. Oh, they don't spend. They never win a playoff game. And, yeah, they have lost 8 playoff games in a row and 11 of the last 13. They got to get off that schneid. We'll see. But right now, man, this is really a special time. And as a fan, you got to be just so excited to have these 3 great young teams. And it's, again, the Guardians, we know for sure, great elite front office, elite manager. For the Browns, the jury's still out. I would say Kevin Stefanski, I think he's a good, solid coach. People want to say he's great. That's absurd. Terry Francona is great. He's proven. Kevin Stefanski, we don't know. Andrew Berry, jury's still out. I think he's done a solid job, but there's definitely question marks. Kobe Altman, love him. I can't. They haven't won a playoff game yet, so I can't say he's a great GM. But I think he's done an amazing job these last few years. Amazing. As good as any GM in the league. And I like Bickerstaff a lot. So I think when you look at the front offices for all 3 teams and the coaches for all 3 teams / manager, you got to be thrilled. I like them, love some of them, but like them all. Owners, Dan Gilbert, he's staying out of the way now. Not too bad. Dolan, it's a mixed bag. Drives you crazy with the lack of spending, but again, I've said it a million times. As much as I've been critical of him, he hired great people. Great. Not good. The best in the league. And he's outside of limiting the payroll, which is a big one, stays out of their way. Doesn't meddle. Haslam meddles. Dan meddled. Not anymore, but he meddles. Dolan never did that. Dolan doesn't think he knows more baseball than the guys he's hired to do it. Dan and Jimmy think they do. And obviously they're embarrassingly wrong. Jimmy's a terrible owner. There's nothing to be done about that. It's never going to change. He's been a clown show from the moment he's been here. If the Browns have success, it's in spite of him. I will give him credit like I did for Dan in the past when I was critical of him. I say Dan like I know him. I've never met the man. To Haslam's credit, he has been willing to spend, no doubt about it. And he was willing to take the PR hit on the Deshaun Watson trade. Maybe it was his idea. A lot of people think that. I have no idea. I don't know. But Jimmy Haslam overall is a terrible owner. He's done some clown things that we all know about, some clown things behind the scenes. I think it's a joke that his son-in-law is like the powerful man in the organization. The whole thing is stupid and embarrassing. But in spite of him, they seem to have found a good GM and a good coach. Hopefully he won't panic fire him and go a different direction again. I don't know what he's going to do. He's a wild card. But again, despite some of the criticisms, it's a great positive time. Because even with my dislike of Jimmy, and to some degree Dan Gilbert, and to some degree Dolan, you gotta love what you're getting from coaches and GMs in this town. And the teams are in great shape, and they're young. None of them are at the end of a window. They're all the Browns are a little past the beginning. The Cavs and Guardians are at the beginning. The Browns are more in the middle, but all three are in great shape. But if I had to predict right now who's the most likely to win the championship in the next 5 years, I'd still pick the Guardians. But I think you can, again, make the case for all three potentially win the championship in the next 5 years. Folks, let me talk to you about Sleeper. Sleeper is the fastest growing fantasy platform today. Over 4 million plus users. How about that? 4 million. They recently added 22 new features, including over-unders integrated into fantasy. First sports contest game built into the fantasy experience. Not only can you enter a contest via over-under, but you can also do so through your Fantasy League's matchup screen. It's super simple. First, in any sport, choose 2 or more players you like and pick the over-under, for example, rushing yards in football, number of points in basketball. Then choose the amount of money you want to enter into the contest. If you pick correctly, you can win anywhere from 2 to 20 times the money you put in. Main reason I'm excited, Over-Under on Sleeper is the only app where I can join my friends' contests and play together so you can talk trash and just rip them a new you-know-what. It's got a built-in game chat. See copy of group picks, tap a button, fun to ride it out together and talk trash. So stop what you're doing and download Sleeper now to play their over-under game. Have fun with your friends and make some cash. On your mobile phone, join the listener group at sleeper.com/lockedonbets or sleeper.com/lockedon today. And Sleeper will automatically match your first deposit up to $100. Again, go to sleeper.com/lockedonbets or sleeper.com/lockedon today, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. There you go. All right. Yellow Cup 3 days in a row. Now, my defense, I have washed it. I'm not just like using the same cup day after day. I washed it, went right back to it. I'm a big fan of the Yellow Cup right now. Okay. Couple of updates. Injury-wise with the Browns, Kevin Stefanski spoke yesterday, and Myles Garrett was not even at the facility, which is not surprising after what he's been through in the past couple of days. Getting out of the hospital. So, to this point, he hasn't been ruled out, but I think we're all going to be shocked if Myles Garrett plays this. I guess shocked is too strong since he's just a monster, but I think we'll all be very surprised if Myles Garrett ends up playing this week. Also yesterday, Jadeveon Clowney did not practice either. What is going on here? Jadeveon Clowney did not practice. Also, here's some other injury notes. Guys who did not practice yesterday. Joel Bitonio, biceps, Tavon Bryan, hamstring, Jadeveon Clowney, ankle, Myles Garrett, we know. JOK, groin, Denzel Ward, back and ribs. Bitonio will play, I assume. Myles Garrett will not play. The other guys, I don't know. Denzel Ward dealing with an injury here is new. I don't know if it's how serious it is, but again, those guys did not practice yesterday. I saw that Cordell Patterson did not practice for the Falcons, but I was just reading that it was more like a veteran day off, so they didn't. It seems like he should be younger because he really wasn't a factor in the NFL till last season. but he's not. He's been around the league. They just finally learned how to use him, and since last year, he's been for some, unless you're a fantasy football guy, he's been under the radar to some degree. But he's the guy. There's been a lot of talk about Kyle Pitts and Drake London, the rookie wide receiver. Cordero Patterson right now he's been their best player, their most consistent player. And I'm worried about the Browns' ability to stop the run with weak defensive tackles and Jadeveon Clowney again. We think of him as a pass rusher, but his strength really is his run stopping ability from the usually you think defensive tackles run, defensive ends pass, but Jadeveon Clowney is one of the best run stopping DNs in football. So he certainly hurts big time. He hurts their ability, him being out hurts their ability to stop the run. Again, there's so many unknowns right now when it comes to the Browns' defense and who's going to be playing. But I am worried about Cordero Patterson being a big factor in this game. But ultimately, and I'll do the final pick tomorrow, I am leaning towards the Browns, who are favored by just 1.5 on the road. So the line's gone down. It started over 3. And for it to make that, again, a 2-point move, a lot of that Myles Garrett out, I think. So it's just something to keep an eye on. But, some of these injuries and certainly whether or not Myles Garrett's going to play is the biggest one of them all. But I think he's not going to. And if that's the case, I expect the game to be close. Falcons' offense has been pretty good. And we had Dave Richard on UCSS yesterday, and he said he thinks the Falcons' run defense is okay. They do have Grady Jarrett up there who's a good run stopper, but they have not stopped the run this year, and they were bad against the run last year. We'll see. I don't know. I don't think, again, I've said this a million times, I don't think anybody can stop Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I don't think there's a team out there that can stop them. I mean, there'll probably be a game or two that the running game's not great. They'll probably end up, it's just going to happen. But I don't care how good your run defense is on paper. I'm going to expect those guys to have great games every single game as a tandem. And maybe they won't. Maybe they won't have that 1 or 2 bad games. I mean, for most teams, you think there'd be 5, 6, 7 bad games from your running team. For the Browns, I'll say maybe 1 or 2. It's just going to happen most likely. But I don't know. I'm never going to go into a game, even if they play the best run defense in the NFL. I don't know who's got the best run defense in the NFL. But I would still bet on Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt against the best run defense in the NFL 10 out of 10 times. Because I don't think there's a run defense in the league that's elite. And this, in my opinion, the Browns have an all-time great backfield. I mean, you have a talented player in Dearness Johnson who he can't even get on the field. And why would you? Because you have 2 star backs, including Nick Chubb, who I believe now, to me, is the best back in the NFL. Now, there are some backs who are more versatile, obviously, ability to catch passes, but I'm riding with Nick Chubb no matter what. I mean, that guy's just the best. I've talked about it a million times. I'll leave it there. A couple of final thoughts on the Guardians as well when I come back next in the bullpen with Adam Bull. All right, I'm going to get to the Guardians. Also, I got to get some movie and TV stuff that I said I was going to talk about. Francona, here's all you need to know about the Guardians in this final week before the playoffs. Terry Francona, here's the fine line between rest and rust, and he will find it. Get to 90 wins, win a few games. Don't got to win them all. Don't want to lose them all. Keep the energy. Yesterday you had some of those guys in the lineup. I said Jimenez. Yesterday he had Straw was out of the lineup. Rosario was out of the lineup. There were a few guys out of the starting lineup. I can't think who else was out of the lineup yesterday. Let me bring up the lineup. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Jose played, but he DH'd. I think that's it. Hedges was out, but he sits out sometimes. And I bet you tomorrow or today, probably see Jose get a day. That's got to be tough. Tito, he probably fights him tooth and nail. Tristan McKenzie, I'm sorry, not Tristan McKenzie. Oscar Gonzalez probably get a day. They're going to get all these guys a day. Josh Naylor, who played last night as well. All right, so listen, there's not much to talk about with the Guardians until we know who they're playing and we get the playoffs going next Friday. Now let's do some movie TV stuff. I got to bring up my dorky list, which I have a big spreadsheet, but I'm looking at it on my phone. My big spreadsheet's up my home computer. A couple of things I've been watching lately. I like to share the love of TV shows and movies that I've been watching. I've watched the first 2 episodes of the new Star Wars feature Andor, which is a TV show on Disney Plus. I think it's pretty good so far. I'm enjoying it. It's a little grittier. I feel like the typical Star Wars TV show and just movie. It's just a little darker in a way, or like this. It just has a different feel to it, and I like it. I don't know if I mentioned this before. She-Hulk Attorney at Law. I'm a big Marvel person. I'm watching the show because I watch everything Marvel, because even if I don't like it, it's got to connect to something else. And I have rarely not liked the Marvel anything. Movie, TV show, one of their shorts. I like pretty much everything Marvel. She-Hulk Attorney at Law is the worst thing Marvel's ever done, in my opinion. Everybody's got their own taste. Maybe you like it. I think it's absolutely cheesy. And I mean, a lot of this stuff is cheesy, but this is way over the top cheesy. This and the Eternals are the 2 worst things for Marvel, in my opinion. Started Lord of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings prequel TV show, The Rings of Power. I'm a little bored right now. I'm going to stick with it, but I'm a little bored. Now, you folks feel House of the Dragon, which is the Game of Thrones prequel. I'm really enjoying it. I know Anthony and Mikey McNuggets from Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show both disappointed about episode 6, which just happened this past Sunday. I won't tell you what happened because I don't want to be a spoiler, but they were frustrated by that. A couple other things I just started watching. There's a show called Wedding Season on Hulu. Terrible name. It's misleading. It's not. It sounds like a chick flick. Can you still use that term, chick flick? It's always such a stupid thing anyway. I once had somebody argue with me that Wedding Crashers, the comedy, was a chick flick. That person's a dullard. But anyway, the show Wedding Season, I've watched the first 2 episodes on Hulu. It's kind of interesting. I want to see where it's going. There's a mini-series on Apple TV that came out a little bit ago, and I'm just starting. I just watched the first episode, called Blackbird. It's a limited series, not mini-series, but whatever, same thing. It's based on a true story about a guy who goes to jail and then has to try to elicit a confession from a alleged serial killer. I watched the first episode. It was really good. Really liked it. Coming out today, or yesterday, actually. Oh, I forgot about this. If you are a Mighty Ducks fan and you have kids, the 2nd season of the Mighty Ducks Game Changers just came out. That's if you have kids and whatever, or if you like Mighty Ducks. I thought the first season was cute, although Emilio Estevez is off the show. And then coming up this Sunday, the start of the final 8 episodes of The Walking Dead. I don't know how many people are still watching The Walking Dead. I am. I binged watched it during the pandemic. I love it now. Final 8 episodes starting this Sunday. So that's a little TV update. All right, I'll talk to you on Friday. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. See ya.